Good evening to all of you and a warm welcome to all our guests across Asia. We've got people here today from India, Sri Lanka, UAE, Singapore, a few, and a couple also from UK and US. And I can see a couple joining in from Germany, etc. Across India also, I think we have maximum cities represented in our webinar today. So a very warm welcome. As you know, we started this series at Great Place to Work with an objective of bringing to you leaders of best workplaces, bringing learning right from the people who are on the ground and actually handling things day to day, just the way some of us are. Today, among our audience, we've seen that almost 60% are in senior leadership positions, and we've got two CEOs as our guests joining our CEO, Prasenjit Bhattacharya, to talk about leadership in the current times. So our two guests for the evening are, first, Bala Maladi. He is the CEO of ACT, Atria Convergence Technologies, somebody who has great experience of almost 30 years across multiple industry sectors. He spent a lot of time at Unilever before he founded ACT, and he successfully completed a wide range of projects both in India and Europe at HUL, which were primarily in the areas of finance, strategy, supply chain, and spent more than 17 years at Unilever. He also headed the commercial function of Kimberly Clark and represented Unilever in this joint venture. At ACT, Bala leads the blueprint of strategic business plans, directs all business vertical heads on their operating roadmap. He personally oversees the acquisitions and is very passionate about the value system that they have set at ACT, called the ACT Way value system. And I've personally experienced this in Bala's leadership. He's someone who is, a subtle leader, but very, very impactful. So he's not somebody who will come out aggressively when he's speaking to you or his people. So someone subtle with very, very firm impact. So I kind of admire his style of leadership. He has used his experience of setting up new businesses and managing very large portfolios in forming ACT, which is now a leading digital cable and broadband service provider. He's passionate about developing people and also leading initiatives, whether it is within his business or guiding under other young businesses. So Bala is somebody who's very passionate about that. Thank you so much, Bala, for taking out time and joining us here today. The second leader we have today is MK Anand, the Managing Director and CEO of Times Network. Anand, as some of you would realize today, you can't see him probably, so I will get to the story of that. So he's a person literally in the news, managing one of the leading networks in the country, but behind the scenes. So he's someone who's really led Times Network to the leader in the Times it is today. He has over 3 decades of experience, and across Times Group itself, he has spent about 23 years in all parts of the business. So he has been in print, digital, broadcast, all 3 sides. And at Times Network, he also was responsible for launching some of the new products. So he launched Mirror Now. Under his leadership, quite a few channels under Times Network, whether it is ET Now, Movies Now, Romedy Now, they have all grown under their respective genres and are leading amongst their respective groups. So he's someone who kind of leads from the front, but you would not see him on screen, and it'll be his people that I think most of us listen to when we tune in to our daily news. Prior to joining Times, MK has spent time at Disney. He was responsible for actually the turnaround that UTV saw, and when Disney bought out UTV, he was the managing director of the merged entity. before he joined Times again in 2014 and has been leading that since then. So thank you so much, Anand. So both these CEOs actually have very interesting experiences to share. Both their teams are actually out there in the front lines, working in the current scenarios. So some incredible experiences they've had, and really looking forward to the evening when you share with us that how do you manage both these sides of managing our people, the security, and while delivering to customers like us. Thank you so much for joining us. Over to Prasenjit, who will take the discussion forward from here.
Hey, thank you so much, Preeti. And Bala, thank you for joining. Anand, thank you so much. And I'm going to plunge straight in and not go into too much of long-winded discussion. So as you see, Anand is not on the screen, but he is very much there. Anand, are you there and can you hear us?
Yes, sir. Yes, I can.
Okay, brilliant. As Anand would say that he would say that my guys Rahul Shivshankar, Navika Kumar, Maruf Raza, Faye D'Souza, and previously, of course, Arnab Goswami. These are the people you guys should see on screen. I just do the simple job of pulling the strings from behind and making the business work. So Anand, thank you for joining us. And would you like to tell us a little bit about why we can't see you on screen, Anand? What's the story? You are a handsome guy, so you are photogenic, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have not used a laptop or a desktop or an iPad for the last 11 years. I have been completely on a handheld device since 2009 end, I think. So unfortunately, I don't have any device at home. The only device that is there right now, which I did sort of attempt, is my daughter. But unfortunately, she's actually using Zoom on her school class. So I couldn't sort of love someone a laptop. So I have perfected the art of typing with my thumb. I can actually write articles with it. I do everything from everything to everything on the phone. And unfortunately, and I also do a lot of conference calls, webinars, etc., using Microsoft Teams, Zoom, etc. I really did not know that iPhone X was not supported by GoToWebinar. I tried a little bit of research on how to get it done. Unfortunately, I've not been successful. So you can hear me and not see me.
Yeah, and I think that would add to the to the excitement and the romance and the mystery of this webinar. So in any case, even on an everyday basis, we can hear you, but we can't see you through your channels. So let me quickly give the audience, and we have such an amazing audience today, a glimpse of these two personalities, and then I'll plunge right in, and I'll start by asking a question to Anand first. And now Bala, of course, you know his background. I remember it was, which month is it now? It's May. So it was May of last year. And Bala and 250 of his best managers were together with Shefali, his HR head, in Cochin to celebrate an amazing year. And the high point of that celebration, and I was invited to be a part of that celebration for some part of it. The high point was the traditional Kerala long boat race. And not just the high point, it was the most expensive, highest cost item in that entire program that had been charted out. And you can imagine from my 7th floor window in a 5-star hotel, when I looked down on a Friday evening or Friday afternoon, if I am not, sorry, it was a Saturday afternoon, if I'm not mistaken. And there's these 3 long boats with all traditional instruments, the Panchvadyam, the Chenda drum, the trumpet, the works, and traditional gear. And you have 250 people excited getting into the boats. And this is the Kerala boat race. Everyone has heard about it, and a lot of us have seen it. And Bala was one of the last to board. And just when Bala's time came to board the boat, he realized that the life jackets had run out. So instead of the proper life jacket, what the organizers did, the boat race organizers, they gave everyone a small collar which had to be put around the neck. And this was the story that was told to me by somebody else, Bala, because that person actually counted. And he said it apparently took about 10 seconds for Bala to call off the boat race. Imagine the high point of that entire celebration, 250 excited people. And at the end, Bala calls off the race. That evening, when I had dinner with Bala, I remember at the table asking Bala that what happened? Why did you, it was such a great disappointment for everyone. So why did you call it off? And I still remember the answer he gave me. So Bala said, I have a son. And in my mind, in those 10 seconds, all I could visualize was if my son was getting into this boat with this kind of a collar instead of a proper life jacket, would I be comfortable allowing him to get into this boat and onto the sea? And it was amazing because next day, Bala gets a standing ovation from his people because a lot of them also realized the implication of that decision, which was momentarily so disappointing. So that is Bala. And you would realize as we go through this webinar that how carefully we have curated the personalities who come in this leadership series. By the way, we have called this entire series COVID-19 and Beyond, asking tough questions and straight answers, getting straight answers. So it was in August of 2015, just after his stint in Disney and UTV, when Anand was brought to Times Network to turn around a business which was very well known for Arnab Goswami and Times Now, but which was actually which was not making money at all. And I remember on 12th August 2015, I was the facilitator in Times Network. I don't know, Anand, if you remember, it was somewhere in Worli we had gathered for a workshop.
Yes.
And true to his nature, Anand came on the dot, exactly on time. But the workshop still started half an hour late because one of his senior colleagues was late. If I remember, his name is Arnab Goswami. And at that point in time, Anand had a slogan, and he probably doesn't have the same slogan now. That for the company, it said now or nothing. So he's not the guy who is that continues.
Yeah.
So he's not the guy who is happy with an incremental 2% increase in market share and so on and so forth. Now or nothing was the slogan of Times Now Network. And, a lot of water has gone under the bridge. Then we know that Arnab is no longer a part of his team. What we don't know or may not realize is that his business makes more money than ever before. And while it's a tough business, doesn't necessarily mean that this is a high margin business. And much later, after Arnab left, when I asked Anand, and I said, I'm so confused. I thought news was news. And when I see Times Now, I see a different tone of news altogether. It's all about, how the hell can this happen in Kashmir? Somebody needs to be taught a lesson. And when I see Mirror Now, I see a completely different picture. It is about how would common people pay the prices of onions, and why can't we keep our local trains safe? And he said something which I remember even today. He said, you watch which channel? So I gave him an answer that this is the channel I watch more than the other channel. And then he said, you know why? Because both are very different market segments. One is called India First, and the other one is called Indians First. So that was the first time I realized the genius of Anand in terms of applying market segmentation to what I thought was news. News is news, but news is not news. News is also a matter of kind of segment that you cater to. So I'll jump straight in, and I'm going to ask my first question to Anand. Anand, I would like you, before you talk about COVID and the implications, to help us understand the business context of your industry, and in particular your organization, and what was the context in which we are today facing COVID, of course. But even before that, help us understand how the media business, in particular visual media of the kind that you have, has moved. And media is, of course, seeing large-scale layoff and pay cuts. And is that the same for you, or is it different? Over to you, Anand.
Thanks, Prasenjit. So the context of the last one decade, and more so, I would say in the last 5 years, have been the rise of digital as a mode of distribution. I don't call digital as new media or digital media separately. It is a new mode of distribution. Incidentally, when you look at the history of media as a business, it is actually the history of distribution in media, because content was always there. People used to sing to each other even 10,000 years ago. But when you are able to sort of capture that song, put it on a cassette or a record or into a radio or on a TV or on an over-the-top full stream, it becomes a different experience and it becomes a different revenue model. So the genesis and evolution of the business of media is about the genesis and evolution of distribution. So I think the biggest thing that has happened over the last 3 decades, and definitely at a much higher frenzied rate in the last 10 years, and even more in the last 5 years, is the rise of digital in our this one. Second is in India specifically, there is also the increasing enablement or confidence that from the top of the pyramid, confidence and ability and has slowly been seeping down over the last 70 years, and it has come to a place where as against 5 to 7%, today at least 25 to 30% of Indians are participating in decision making in some form or the other. I mean, of course, we have about 45 to 60% voting in various elections, but decision making and opinion making was a lot lesser in terms of participation. I think that is expanding significantly because of the rise of digital, rise of news media since the last 20 years as in news channels, and of course recently the whole smartphone explosion that has happened in people's hands, and then over the last 3 years, 3 to 4 years, now 3 years, I think, the coming of Jio and the reduction in digital access price, leading to so many people being able to get content and also participate in a return path, leading to opinion making and opinion participation becoming a lot more. This is much different from a one-to-all broadcasting, standing on a podium and speaking to people who could not talk back at you was what news and media was. Today, that is not so. It's a very, very vigorous, very rowdy, reactive, audience, and that's not just in India. It is all over the world. But the difference in India compared to all over the world is that the population and the density and I would say the aggressiveness because of the population. Any animal, if you put too many of them together, they'll get more aggressive. So that is additional multiplier in the Indian context. I'm sure that is the same in the Southeast Asian or South Asian context. Not yet in Africa because the density is not there. China, of course, is a completely different regime, but definitely, and this is not what you see in Europe or US, because again, there the number of people per media is much lesser than it is here. So these two things are really playing out over the last 20 years and last 10 years and last 5 years in a very, very strong manner. For us, with reference to the business itself, we have had, I would say, more than deserved share of black swans. I mean, it's not been a black swan; it's been I would say, a flock of black swans. We have had, I would say, I can tell you, 2015-16 is when I think we had a change in our at the audience measurement panel. It used to be what we call TAM, and now it's called BARC. That change, while it was at a certain level, it was an organization change, institution change. It's the fundamental thing that happened was that from a panel which used to be only city specific, now the panel is all over the country. And because a lot more of people in the rural areas are getting measured, although the viewers in the higher end audiences are getting measured, and in fact the absolute numbers have gone up, the measured audience from the non premium sector going up means that as a percentage, the higher end channels, etc., looking much smaller in terms of the percentage. So that's the reason you have channels like Discovery, your English entertainment channels, all the higher end channels. I mean, MTV used to be a force once upon a time, 10 years back, 7 years back. It is no longer. So there is a shift towards the vernacular, the Indian language set, even towards free to air and the thing. So that is a first level hit that was there. Second was, of course, losing a coveted asset who was our primetime star. And that was a big one to sort of fill in that gap. Was difficult on the product level for Arnab going out in 2016. Simultaneously, we had demonetization, and it hits smaller, weaker companies a lot more than larger companies. So obviously within the group, Bennett Coleman, which is a print company, which is about about 6 times bigger, 7 times bigger than us, the lesser hit than us. And then you had GST getting rolled out. In the middle of that, Arnab went. If he had gone to Cambridge, it would have been great. Then I would have only had to fill in his loss. The second black swan is that he came back in the form of Republic, which was one of the most virulent, violent competition. And today I'm thankful that happened, because had we not competed, both Arnab and us, really sort of forced the market to become bigger. When Arnab quit here, we were a 500,000 to 600,000 per week, audience reach. Because of the launch and because of the counter measures that was taken by both sides over 1.5 years, both the channels today have around 1.8 to 2.5 million reach on a weekly basis, which means the category got expanded substantially because of that competition, which I think is what is holding us in a good place today, when we have had a terrible last year, which is, I think if coronavirus had not happened, I would have actually written last year, which is FY20, as one of the worst years that I have seen in my life from the point of view of ad sales. And but coronavirus, of course, has come and sort of taken away that. Even before the year got over, we knew that something worse was waiting around the corner. In between that, of course, we had a huge fire in our office in Kamla Mills. You would have heard the pub which got burnt and 14 people died on the terrace. The building, is ours. I mean, the ground and first floor was ours. So some embers fell onto one side, which broke into the roof, asbestos roof on one side, burnt the carpet, and through it sort of completely gutted the entire office. On one evening, we had an office. Next morning, 900 people approximately were on the street. We were actually operating on the building side for that day. Nobody knows this, because between 12:50 in the evening and in the night, and I think 5 in the morning, because it was midnight, we were able to on the fly change the satellite and move the entire operation to Delhi. We sent off 165 people in the night and early morning flights, so that they straight went to office in their Delhi setup, and we operated from there, etc. So we have had our fair share of these problems. So one of the good things that happened because of this was that we had already gotten to a place where I can safely say that we do not carry passengers that we will come to a place to say that, because of coronavirus, we will retrench. I don't think, if I say that I'm retrenching because of coronavirus, it means that I was waiting for a bad event to happen for me to retrench. You have to retrench not basis coronavirus. You have to retrench only basis performance and whether you need those people. And obviously, I would never sort of pardon somebody for taking somebody in and saying that, oh, now we don't have this work. So that is not our style. So we would find work for people who don't have work. But we have a very simple Jack Welch model. You are aware of that. Every year, we have very, very serious about the bell curve. Although people say that bell curve is out of fashion, I don't see any way that you can do a subjective comparison of people and say that the bell curve doesn't apply. Anybody who understands basic statistics knows that when sample n equal to 30 or above, the bell curve does form. there is something called as normal distribution. And when you do that normal distribution, there will be the bottom 10 or 25 percentile, which is put on a PIP and coached. And if it doesn't work out, we have a forced attrition program on a regular basis. So we don't have any passengers. So you asked me the second question that there is a lot of layoffs and salary cuts, etc. Salary cuts, yes. I think at the top level, above 1 crore of rupees, all of us have taken a minor cut. Although we don't think, considering our financial performance of last year and expected performance of this year, we may need to actually sort of, go with the cut or through the year. We may reinstate it, in the middle of the year. But it is more from the point of view of ensuring ourselves that we're not going beyond and sort of conserving cash in the first quarter, because we are also an H2 business. If you see, season for advertising is in October, and therefore H2 is always higher than our H1, and therefore H1 cash coming in is a little issue. Plus, right now we are operating at about 40% below our regular monthly run rate on ad sales. Although subscription, fortunately, we are on par because people are all watching channels, and fortunately all of them are paying. I mean, we in fact did feel that there was a possibility of collection issues which Bala might be facing. We've actually gone without anybody asking us. We actually went with a lot of communication on the channel saying that please support the cable operators, please support DTH operators. You are sitting at home and having a decent time because your TV is on. If they don't sort of provide you that, so don't sort of right now use it as an excuse to not pay that 300 or 400 rupees, because that money is going into paying cable boys and stuff like that. We've had a lot of such communication happening, and fortunately, although we did provide a little bit for the first 2 months in terms of bad debts or collection issues, I have not seen that coming through. So from a financial point of view, we are, as I said, we are 50-50 ad sales and subscription. So 40%.
I think that's a huge shift, because I remember in 2014-15 when I had met you,
we were 10%.
I think
we were 10%. Correct.
Absolutely, this is like, I mean, and I must congratulate you for that shift, that you are no longer dependent on ad business. But you made a comment, and much like the panel discussions in your television channels, I would like Bala to reply to that comment. So Bala, Anand says you have a collections issue right now, and that is what he foresees. And tell us about your business, because everybody says that broadband, of course, this is the best time. You must be doing so well. People are crazy about broadband services, but some of them don't understand that you probably also cater to small, medium businesses. Tell us what's your context for your business, Bala.
Yeah, thank you, Prasenjit. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Thank you for the audience for your time. I think it's a great opportunity for us to share our thoughts and our experience with you. And I would like to all my answers are straight to the question of Prasenjit, but at the same time, I would like to give a little bit of a context. Having said this, I think Anand is right. He is talking about the cable business. Just to give you an introduction about our business, we are a service provider, broadband service provider to 1.5 million homes. We are also a cable service provider to about 1 million homes in the country. On top of it, we have something like 100,000 small office, home office, and SMEs. And before we have seen this, this absolute disaster called COVID, we have always been part of the digital transformation of the country. And the digital transformation of the country has enabled our business to be just afloat, like what Anand was talking about, the swarm of Black Swan events. Our Black Swan events actually related to a huge competition, one of the largest startups in the world. And us fighting, it's like David versus Goliath, and us fighting in the marketplace with a free product. So what these kind of Black Swan events teach every business is how to survive despite all odds against it. I think we have mastered the art, and whichever else is a business that is actually going through a bit of stress today, if that particular business had gone through any amount of stress or a distress earlier, they would be a lot more agile, just like the body develops antibodies, for any virus. Yeah. So having said this, we have during this particular COVID times, we had 3 portfolio of businesses. The biggest portfolio being a retail broadband business. We have seen unprecedented demand, but with a concomitant problem of almost double the usage that any normal customer would have done in the normal times. At the same time, we have about 100,000 SOHO customers. There is virtually no activity in this particular segment because all their shops, all their businesses were completely shut, and they didn't have even access to open that. I think their livelihood is seriously impacted. Then we have the cable business, as Anand was talking. While it serves the prime time requirement of giving them entertainment, but I think there's a fair amount of distress in terms of those rural, especially the rural audience, unable to pay their cable bills, given the kind of, it's basically a disposable income issue. The propensity to pay has come down substantially because their livelihoods are impacted one way or other. So this is a mixture. There's a mix of multiple businesses that we have and that we hold. I don't think in current times there's any business that is impervious to the impact of this coronavirus. Having said this, it's a matter of the approach that you have to take and feel how do you actually take it forward with all the constraints being taken into the baseline. So present this to your question of whether what Anand is talking about, whether there are a lot of things that have happened in this industry. There is a new tariff adder that happened. The entire digital platform has been enabled from the earlier, an unaddressable platform, and there is a different way of the cost sharing or the price sharing between the value sharing between a broadcaster and an MSO and the cable operator. This particular business has seen multiple transformations. I would not call one metamorphosis. This particular business has seen multiple metamorphoses. That is the reason you are absolutely, I'm sure you are surprised about the revenue model of a broadcaster from advertisement moving a little bit into the, the content value recovery. I think it is the right thing that has happened. Same thing happened even to the MSO industry, but I think that is for a different discussion. Right now, I mean, I leave it to you to take you to the next.
I'm going to request my colleagues to put on a poll right now because we want you to give us straight answers to specific challenges, and the poll is going to really talk about the biggest challenge faced by management, and put yourself in the shoes of management, because I noticed from the audience profile that a disproportionately large number of you are CXOs. And so from the point of view of management, what do you consider is as the biggest challenge faced by management today? And you have the option of selecting multiple choices. So you can select as many choices, but this is specific to your business. And while we'll just give you 10 seconds to do that, but I think the good takeaway from the first question is that the businesses which have built their business as if there is going to be an emergency, or who have already faced multiple black swan events, are today better placed. And for those of you who have questions about forced ranking and can a great place to work actually do forced ranking, the answer by Anand is that thanks to that forced ranking, he is not asking any of his colleagues to go off because of COVID, but people have gone off because of performance related issues. And he sort of says that it is subjective to some extent. But the reality is, when I spoke to Anand, he said that he would rather close down the business if it is not profitable. And let's come to the outcome of the audience poll on the key challenges. Preeti, would you like to tell us what is the outcome? It's on your screen, actually. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I think managing
Okay,
revenue,
so
of course, the largest is managing costs and cash flows, which I think is fairly obvious in the current context. We also surveyed over 300 organizations, and we had very similar kind of output from the clients that we spoke to, that this is something people are facing and constantly struggling with. Employee well-being, of course, in our survey came out as a much stronger concern as well, along with costs, which we see as 16% in the audience.
Okay, so this was a single choice kind of survey. So my now quick question, I'll start with you, Bala, again, is that yours is supposed to be an essential service, right? And what happened when COVID-19 stuck you? How difficult was it for you to continue the service? And particularly for new customers, you will probably have to actually go to their home to give them that service. And did people acquire new customers at all, or did that stop? What were the top challenges and how did you deal with them, Bala?
Yeah, thank you, Prasanjit. Broadband and cable services have always been essential services. But during the lockdown period, they have become super essential services. Imagine yourself without a net, and imagine yourself without a cable TV. It was a disaster inviting. So what happened is that we had actually faced a phenomenal amount of challenge, because we were given two conflicting choices that we had to make. Because the unprecedented challenge that we're talking about is delivering that exceptional uptime to all our customers on a high-speed fiber optic topology, which we are best known for which we're very highly known for. In fact, all our customers actually appreciate us, they pay us despite their having multiple choices and even cheaper choices. At the same time, maintaining the health and safety of our employees. I think this is the biggest dilemma we had ever faced in our history. But having said this, just to give you a feel for it, we have 7,000 employees, and 70% of them work on the field. They are frontline employees. We are known to troubleshoot our customers, our customer issues at their doorstep, giving them the absolute convenience, whether it is a problem with your router, whether it's a problem with your computer, whether there is an issue with respect to the virus that you have on the computer, and so on and so forth. Now the virus situation has actually thrown open a gamut of problems for us. How do you deliver that promised brand promise of service at your doorstep and make sure your customers are your employees are absolutely safe and secure? I think in times of crisis, we need to make choices. I don't think that we should shy away from making the choice. We have chosen our own teams, health and safety, as the highest super priority over anything else. But at the same time, after that super priority, it is followed by uninterrupted service to the existing customers. We had 3 sets of priorities: taking care of the employees, safety, especially those employees we're talking about on the field employees. Secondly, delivering the brand promise and to that promise to the customers that we already have. Thirdly, catering to the new customers, because that is a huge opportunity. And if I may say, it is one of those historic opportunity in terms of we are flooded with inquiries, we are flooded with bookings, but unfortunately, we had to take a call. So what we did is that we prioritized all our existing customers over new acquisitions, despite huge demand. And at a level, it's a conscious call. We said, we will eventually win the customers because we already won. We are the 3rd largest ISP in the country. And we already won many hearts it is better that we do it gradually rather than grab this opportunity and put your employees in the forefront at risk. So what we did is we stopped all the field sales executives on the field. All field activities have been stopped, and we have chosen a set of employees to be catering to the needs of the existing customers on a prioritization basis. So whenever else we can actually troubleshoot over phone, there is a backend technical help desk. Through that, we managed most of our customers' issues. And wherever else there is an inevitable home visit that needs to be made, we made sure that all the teams that are there on the forefront have followed every possible protocol. Now, I may actually sound, but this is a practical stuff that we have seen. Leadership during the crisis times is mostly about communication and demonstrating the values and walking the talk. The only difference thing that we have done is that we had kept a minimal staff that is required on the field, but that is not minimal. At any point of time, we had 1,200 people on the field out of 7,000 employees total the company carries. The only thing we basically made sure is that we are taking care of, we actually bought them sanitizers, we bought them masks when it was not compulsory. We made sure that they actually have a continuous protocol of every half an hour using the mask, using the sanitizer, the internal application that is actually captures their entire workflow. We have created a pop-up saying that, listen, on your phone, it pops up saying that, have you sanitized your hands? Are you wearing your mask? That kind of an awareness that we built. And last but not the least, every one of us, if we are part of essential service, we were there in the field along with them. It is a truly visible leadership that made a huge difference to the people. I think that is exactly made a huge difference when a CEO to the team leader, they were present on the field. People actually, the employees said, we are a different company. We're going to deliver our promise to the customer while being exceptionally safe. I think this is one of the biggest challenges we had to actually face. There is another second biggest challenge we had to face was, thank God we did not have any of those issues coming. Our data centers are the nerve centers of the entire service delivery. In each city, we have two of them, one acting as a redundant data center for the other. But God forbid if both of them are actually quarantined, and if you don't have access to the data center, they can at best run on let's say, on an uninterrupted DG set mode for about 36 hours. What happens after that? So we went proactively, we represented to the government, we made sure those buildings are cordoned off and isolated, that there are no incidents that will happen in those particular buildings. We represented through COA and other things. I think these are multiple issues that we faced. The only thing that, the underlying principle that we used everywhere is that, what is your philosophy and what is your underlying mission? Take care of your employees and deliver that last every bit of the promise that you made to your customers. I think that worked well. We had a lot of challenges. I don't say that everything was a cakewalk, but having said this, I think overall God has been exceptionally kind. I thank God for not even one of my employees getting impacted by the virus. Touch wood.
And I'm just going to jump in here and as I move to Anand, because that is not something that Anand can say. In news media, we know that there have been many people who have been impacted by COVID-19. And Bala, what is so striking about, from a leadership point of view, about what you were saying is that just as in the good times, it's all about principles. And in your prioritization, safety of employees come first, the customer service comes after that. customer service to existing customers comes first. Acquisition of new customers come after that, even though that means that in the short run, you may probably have lost out on some business opportunities, some revenue spikes that were possible. And in all of this, the role of leadership in communicating, in upholding the values, and how? By actually walking the talk, because you have really no business or no need to go out into the field and risk yourself and like the frontline 1,200 employees at any point in time. But if you and your senior colleagues are doing that, it's not because they need your expertise to give that last mile connectivity. It is because it sends such a strong message to everyone that I'm not going to ask you to do something which I'm not willing to do myself. And it is so easy for people to talk about walking the talk, but in this times, I still have examples of CEOs who are thinking of reducing employees but not taking a pay cut themselves. And therefore, it's not always that easy to see role modeling in action. Coming to you, Anand, you are a very, very meticulous person in your planning. And I'm sure when this happened, you would have had the same fear that Bala has about his data center. What if one of your center in Mumbai were to close down? Will Delhi operate? What is the backup plan? And as the old adage go, all the well-laid plans of men and mice, may not suffice. Tell us about your story. Did everything go according to plan, or what happened?
Yeah, I think, Prasenjit, we had a bit of a head start, as I was telling you separately when we were discussing. Honestly, when it happened in China, I will, plead guilty here. That in the month of Jan and even Feb, we actually didn't, consider this to be an imminent threat to come into India at a real level of going into lockdown, etc. We heard that Wuhan was happening. To be honest, in February, late February, I actually went to West Africa on a business trip. We have a big partner there who does a lot of content work in India, a country called Gabon. While coming back, I came via Addis Ababa, and Addis Ababa is a big China entry point into Africa. I think it is the largest entry point for China into Africa. And that airport actually sort of rang bells for me. The way the airport security, the whole protocol of cleanliness, sanitization, the lounge, the way they had sort of laid it out, it was very good. But it was also, to somebody like me who had gone from Bombay airport, there was nothing, really alarming there. Even while coming back into India at that time, there was just one little board saying that if you are come from these 7 countries, please go that side. And there was no quarantining, nothing at that stage. You can't really blame them. This is, I think, late Feb. But, we were also in the middle of a digital transformation for the last 2.5, 3 years. As you know, as I said, there've been a lot of things that starting from August 2015, when you were brought in, because we were actually doing an organization metamorphosis over the last 4-5 years. So we were actually in the middle of a large amount of digital transformation, for which a lot of new software and processes had already been put in place, but was actually not getting fully utilized. Because you know how people are with their old processes and habits, etc. So when I came back, I actually thought that there is a possibility that this will happen. Let us actually do a drill kind of a thing, these fire drills that you do in the building. So in fact, in the first week of March, we started a WFH protocol with all these thoughts, genuinely not thinking that it is really going to come to this by 24th. So we actually went into so-called work from home, I think in the second week of March. I think 13th of March might be the time that we actually started thinking about going into this whole work from home. Initially, it was a half and half. But then I said, let us look at what is the minimum that you require. And that came to a number about 200 plus people who needed to be out, and the rest of the people could be home. And we started putting all these softwares, which were supposed to be anyway used in terms of, linking softwares, reporting softwares, review software, everything. And we gave that drill sort of a 10-day period in which we said, if things go wrong, we know how to correct. And in any case, by around 20th or so, we will come back to normal, because we didn't expect that we will go into 22nd or 24th, I think. 22nd was a Sunday. So 24th, we were supposed to go back to normal. and we started this activity. So I think the biggest success for us was that none of our software gave any glitches. Our entire sort of experience during this period has been, in fact, while talking to you about where it went wrong, I'll tell you there was one day, I think it was 10th or 11th of April, for a whole day, our MCR, the master control room, which usually has to have somebody around it for any channel to, so any broadcast company, our 13 channel broadcast center was inside a quarantine center without a human intervention, remotely being monitored. And we were just sort of with bated breath and crossed fingers, saying that nothing would go wrong, and nothing did go wrong. So one is, we had a technology backend which was anyways under construction. Protiviti was advising us. A lot of stuff was already done, and this helped us to sort of put all that into place, and all of that worked fortunately in the first go itself. Second is, I think we operate, I mean, as I said, starting with my inability to have a laptop or to use a laptop here today, which means that I'm actually completely on the phone. This particular 40-50 days, I've operated on 5 WhatsApp groups. We've got something called as the DMRG, Disaster Management Recovery Group, which started on around 10th of March. Then the strategy group, ad sales group, and Bombay establishment and Delhi establishment, because these are local regulatory issues, BMC problem, Noida problem, police problem, etc. So these 5 WhatsApp groups are active, and there is a bunch of around 50 people who are strewn around these 5 WhatsApp groups who are actually managing it. The 200 people, as I said, 50 people are on the field because these are reporters and camera people. And they were all, initially in the first week or so, we actually were providing them cars. Then we realized that the car came with a driver, and the driver we could not sort of guarantee. And then we started asking the drivers to sleep in the office. But then that also became a little bit of an issue. So eventually, in about 2 weeks, we came to a good place where we, enabled all of them to have their own vehicles, self-driven. Either we provided them somehow, or they got it from their own friends, relatives, or own vehicles. So they're all driving in, and the teams are now sort of fixed, which means the camera person and the journalist doesn't sort of mix around. All of them know, and they are sort of holding that. Until now, we've not had a single case of anybody who was out in the field and got infected. In Bombay and Delhi, where our news centers are, we basically created 2 centers in Bombay, in our BKC corporate office, and in the Low Parel news center itself. We had 2 news center, that is a tech backup. Tech apparatus was put up for redundancy. And in Delhi, in the same building, we created in one wing and the other wing, different wings, we created 2 news centers. So we had 4 news centers, and each could be sort of, be a redundancy center. So basically we had 4. So it could be A and B within the city and C and D in the other city, but A and C could also be interchangeable. And then we sort of divided this, as I said, there were 200 people, of which 50 are on the field. The other 150 people is divided into, let us say, half and half in Bombay and Delhi. And that is the first team A in Bombay at 75 people. And there was another team B in Bombay, which was waiting in case that team got struck. And if they didn't get struck, then there was a 14-day in which we were shifting them, moving from shift to shift. We also, in the initial period, right up to, I think, last week, we actually made it residential compulsory, because we felt that it is better to quarantine them within themselves, in office and in one captive location. In Bombay, in the Taj Lands, and in Delhi, in the Taj, I don't know out of the 2 Taj, I think Taj Palace, I think. So that's how we operated. Unfortunately, as you rightly said, all well-laid plans of men and mice. One of these guys, on the 8th day of the first batch, and this is unlikely that he brought it from outside, because it won't come in on the 8th day. On the 8th day, fortunately, when he was going into the Taj, he was sort of, they found him to be running a fever. And then he was sent to Lilavati, and from there, he was diagnosed. He was sort of told to go for a test in the morning, and that sort of triggered, he was positive. And the moment he became positive, the remaining 67 people, I think, in the office had to be all sort of checked, because he was working in close proximity, of which 5 more people tested positive, unfortunately, people who worked with him. And of which there were 2 people who were pantry boys, because, as I said, it's a residential place. We had to provide them food also. Now, the entire setup, we had a tie-up with Fortis Hospital, of course, paid by us. We sort of took care of them. Fortunately, all of them, went through the whole thing in the asymptomatic manner. Nobody had any, discomfort. And then the protocol was to twice negative tested and then sent home. And, the repeat batch, which came into Bombay, started in the other office, and that's what I said. The first office had the MCR, and for a day or so we did not have access to that MCR. The second office started, and on day one we could not get the time to test and bring them because it was a it was a drop dead situation with the entire team going off. The protocol is such that if you have somebody gone, then the office and everybody else have to be knocked off. So the second batch which came in got tested, and the result came the next day. Unfortunately, one of them was positive. And because of that, the second batch also got quarantined without working. So one batch was sitting in Taj, and there was not enough space there because they had given their part of the hospital to BMC for the doctors. So we had to sort of get the second batch was out of Grand Hyatt. So in Bombay, I had a last team in Grand Hyatt and a last team in Taj Lands and nobody to work. So then the channels ran out of Delhi. For about 3 or 4 days, we had to keep them because once you are exposed, you need to wait a bit to sort of get the test done. And out of that, one of the people who was in quarantine was yours truly, because I had gone to sort of help the second batch set up because the office was apparently not to their liking and stuff. So I had gone to generally sort of pep them up. And unfortunately, the guy who got tested positive was sort of with me in close proximity for some time. So I was out for about 6 days. And then, so I have also gone through the quarantine and the untouchability of the quarantine inside the house, of course. So I think, but after that, we've sort of come back, and there has been no issue. I think we are sort of now very aware. We know what is the trouble that can happen to you if you sort of don't take the right. See, even me, probably I should have gone there and kept a little distance. Not that I trust people, but that distance was not there. And the protocol is that if you're with somebody less than 6 feet for 10 minutes or more, then you are exposed. So I was 15 minutes. So we are now very careful.
Yeah, absolutely, Anand. Sorry, I'm coming in. I think essentially what I hear you saying is that 2 out of the 4 teams got impacted. They were down for 14 days, and now many of them are also back, and probably
all are back. Yeah.
All are back. And just in case if anybody in this call is thinking that this is an academic kind of a question, and because Anand is in the news television business, actually this is exactly what we are going to face now when people start coming back to office and we start working. And I think it's a textbook in that sense that we will also need team A, team B, team C, location A, location B, because this is going to happen, is my guess. By the way, disclaimer that none of us in this panel are experts or biologists or doctors. So anything that we say about COVID-19 is only based on the generic experience like we have. It's an opinion like your opinion or somebody else's opinion. So please don't hold us liable for what we are saying. But Anand, I think the other interesting question, which very few people know. And
just to add, Prasenjit, one small thing on this is that my experience on this, and you said how to come back to work. I have taken away the uncertainty from my team. I have already announced to them that almost surely up to July we will be on work from home, irrespective of the lockdown getting lifted anywhere. So we are we have decided to sort of continue to work like this at least till July, if not later, because as I said, having experienced it, it is not worth it to go and get exposed and come back and then give it to people, unsuspecting people at home, or spread it in the community. It's really important that we take the responsibility that whether it's not about the government to mandate a lockdown, it is about us to sort of be sure that we are not jeopardizing anything. And for that we should I think everybody should work from home or not work from central offices to the extent possible.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. And one of the things which I have found in my business, and that would be true for so many others, is that my real estate cost is going to come down by half. Because even when COVID goes away, I'm not going to have an office which will have 100% seating capacity for 100% of the people, because I would rather pay them money to say, set up working facilities in their office. And for a variety of reasons, those days are gone when an office is what a business is all about. But the question I want to ask you, Anand, is that, and it will be very interesting for the audience, not everyone understands that the news channels. By the way, I also wanted to ask you that 10 days of practice that you got before the official lockdown was announced by Mr. Modi, you
Yeah.
didn't get any inside information from the government, no, that they are going to do it after 10 days, or that was just a proactive step by you? Okay.
Completely. It was more of a, as I said, I got psyched by the Addis Ababa airport, and I anyway honestly
Yes.
had a secret agenda that I wanted to anyway push this company to WFH mode last year onwards. In fact, you can ask Srivatsan, for the last 1 year, I've been telling the team that 30% of our team should work from home. In fact, last year, for some time, the digital team, 45 people were working from home with better productivity. So all that was anyway up my sleeve.
Yes.
So I was just looking at this as a possibility to, make people use existing automation which they were not using and push them to work from home. And it helped.
I think there is another thing which you haven't told people is that it takes you 2 hours to reach office from your home. So
Exactly.
either way, it is.
Yeah.
Anand, I want to
think,
ask you. Now, let me. Sorry, I'm butting in the interest of time. I want to ask you a specific question. Your channel, like some other channels, but more so your network, has done extensive research on COVID-19, how it is spreading. You have 3 different kinds of databases. There are people who have worked on algorithms who are also trying to predict how this is going to, are you going to have one hump or are you going to have multiple humps? And probably are we in the middle of a community transmission, etc. As I said, we are not experts, but we are confused, and we are confused that what is the balance that we need to strike in terms of forcing everybody to work from home or being able to take some risks and do some work, meet customers. So do you have any idea about what is happening to the extent that you can share in a public forum and give us some some advice?
Yes. See, what we probably now are the owners of the only database outside the government of India, which is a validated database on the actual spread of the disease in India and its comparison with the medical infrastructure capability of states and cities. I'm saying this because, around March 20th is when there was this one database called India SIM, if you have heard about it, which was being, talked about in Delhi. And the guy who was talking about it was one Dr. Lakshmi Narayan, I think. And he had a very alarmist, projections of around 2.6 crore people will get the disease, etc. I studied the data. It was a 29-slide presentation, and it had Johns Hopkins University as one of the partners. Unfortunately, the study was so alarmist that it started falling foul of authorities, and it sort of started getting trolled. And some news channels, etc., which were using that, were told to not use it. And then there was this Supreme Court order also that came out saying that you can only use ICMR database and stuff. So basically, we knew that it was going to a place where data is going to be, on a tap. So right in the beginning, therefore, we went about using our, our journalist research group and the commercial research group, because the distribution and ad sales research group, because all of them were sitting together. I mean, sitting at home, we put them all into one. My favorite tool is the WhatsApp group. I put them all into one group called Times Fact and told them to construct a database. And they have been able to, as I was talking to you, the population database, the medical infrastructure database, and the way the COVID virus has been moving around in China, Malaysia, UK, US, Italy as reference points. And then, of course, the ICMR data points that come every day at 4 o'clock. So with all that, we have now got a very, very robust setup, which is able to more or less with about almost 95 to 99% accuracy tell you what is going to happen in the next 7 to 14 days. We believe, and this is available for you to sort of you can go to timesnownews.com, any of you are interested, and look for Times Fact India Outbreak Report. There are various versions which come because every 7-8 days we refresh it, update it, etc. Now, what we have realized is that I'm talking about in the month of April, we knew that the peak is expected to be around between 15th to 25th of May. And if the curve got flattened due to the lockdown, the peak would actually get pushed into first week of June, which actually means that the lockdown cannot be pulled out without consequences of a second wave anytime before, in my opinion, 15th of June. And and that is exactly what is currently playing out. It's moved from April 24 to April 17 to May 3rd to April 14 to May 3rd to May 17th, and now there are talks about it getting extended. I think it will get extended at least in at least into 10th of June or thereabouts. But the point is not about the lockdown. I mean, this is the way the database is predicting. As you rightly said, none of us are microbiologists or experts. But yeah, I mean, we can safely say that the models that we are using are the best, and we've got Protiviti who's advising us on the statistical part and the data science part. So we can stick our necks out with reference to it being statistically correct. So I think India is going to see this the whole thing almost surely into June. The news flow, if you see right now, we had predicted this, that from around 3rd of June, May, up to 15th of May, there is going to be very, very alarming increase in numbers in certain places. And that can have political implications for certain states, which I think may play out within the next 2-3 weeks. So I think the worst, I think, is yet to come. The lockdown, in my opinion, will get extended for at least 1 more month. Now, if you ask us from a philosophical point of view, whether the lockdown is the right idea or not, we've not yet discussed that. I mean, I can discuss that if you want, but this is what is the...
Well, if you are willing to stick your neck out, because that's your call and it's your neck.
Yeah, no problem. So I think this I have sort of held within my editorial group right in the beginning, although I was vetoed, was that I think, we are saving old rich people with comorbid conditions by taking away the livelihoods of young poor people. The young poor people have better immunity and are less likely to die, and therefore I think it is unfair to to continue with this lockdown beyond a point. And that is the reason, if you look at it, the database that we studied had the third pillar of the database was the medical infrastructure database, because we believe that the lockdown is a very good means to an end to basically moderate the disease traffic to an extent that the number of beds are available to service. Beyond the point, if people are expecting that the lockdown is the cure for the disease, that is where I think things are going wrong. Because it's not just the citizens, but a lot of politicians also at the state, central, and local levels somewhere have sort of got think that it's a more convenient way to keep people inside and keep the numbers down, because ultimately they're going to be judged by numbers of people who are in hospitals and die, etc. We believe that it is a better idea to moderately open the economy, even if that means that there will be more infections, because when infections happen, the government needs to worry about whether beds are there or not. If they have used the 40 days to build the beds, then there is no need to sort of keep on closing, keeping the economy closed. However, if you talk about Bombay city, for instance, the situation is dark and very, very difficult, because here we are seeing now almost spontaneous outbreaks happening within buildings, etc. I mean, if any of you are staying in Bombay or in areas like I'm staying in Versova, Andheri, it's absolutely suddenly the building sort of, it is happening in certain areas. So I think certain areas, of course, should be sort of contained in an even stricter manner over the next 3 weeks. But all in all, I think the lockdown is, we would believe, has run its course. It should not be extended, but it will be.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very bold and stance that you have taken. I think what I hear from you is that we have to live with the virus. We have to run our lives with the virus. The virus is not going to wipe off the human race. It will impact a certain set of people who already have certain pre-existing conditions. And in the utilitarian theory that one has been used to, it means that the greater good for a large section of people who are young, who are poor, is something that demands that the economy has to be opened up in a phased manner. And of course, it is anybody's guess that do we have people who are competent enough to actually beef up the hospitals and the healthcare to the extent that it needs to be done, because nobody is talking about the number of people dying today because of non-COVID but preventable causes.
Correct.
Have you heard about the number of
so Prasenjit, what we are doing is, I mean, our CSR, so to say, during this phase has not been, putting out 100 crore rupees. Not that we have the money to pay. I'm talking of Times Television Network as an independent entity. So we decided to give our Shramadhan, our so-called, CSR is in these two things. One is the India Outbreak Report. We promised ourselves that we will create a database which will be so strong that it cannot be questioned by anybody else, and it will be strong enough at a brand level to be presented as an alternative to the government data. And today we are happy that we have that. We can actually pull the bluff off from any state government which says its numbers are this or that, and that's the reason we believe, and it's going to be even stronger as you go forward. So India Outbreak Report, you can go and check it, as I said, on timesnownews.com. The second thing that we are doing is we are working on something called India Revival Mission, which is a white paper, beginning with a white paper to be presented to the powers that be by around June. For this, we are working with Amit Kapoor, Amit, who's
Yes.
Institute of Competitiveness.
Institute of Competitiveness.
Yeah. So the India Revival Mission is our, because we know that we talk to 7% of India. Most of us on this group would be, at least 50% of them are watching my channels, Times Now, ET Now, Mirror Now. So we believe that if we can create opinion and, generate public discourse and debate around the economic revival, and sort of push ideas, crowdsource ideas, that would be our contribution. So India Revival Mission and India Outbreak Report, both are non-financed, non-sponsored, not-for-profit, initiatives that we have done with our companies' resources who are currently sitting at home beyond the content teams. So this is not the editorial teams which are doing it. It is the marketing and the other content people who are actually, sitting idle at home or sort of developing all this and putting it out there. So we believe this is our contribution during the coronavirus thing, and we think that these are IPs that could be useful.
Now I'm coming to the last section, but broadly, my takeaway from what you have said is that we have to, go and do our business, and because sitting at home and extending the lockdown indefinitely is not going to beat the virus. The vaccine and the cure is going to beat the virus, and until that time, we have to live with the virus, increase our immunity, do what it takes to, and the fact of the matter is the percentage will remain what it is, 2 to 3% of people. Now, can I put a very quick poll, the last poll, where I'm going to talk about the impact on employees, because the impact on human beings is very, very significant right now. So you can, in this poll, tell us what is the impact on your people because of the current COVID-19 situation. And don't think as management, now think of individual employees. And you can select, unlike the previous one, here you can select all the options or some of the options, depending on which ones do you think are impacting your people the most. I would suggest that select not more than 3 so that we get a bit of a trend. So right now, your people are the most worried about work-life balance, infrastructure, net connectivity, and suffering from anxiety, financial concerns, or managing physical health. What do you think are the top 3 according to you? And that's it. I think we can show the results if you have selected it. And very briefly, if we can see the results. So work-life balance, but anxiety and psychological wellness and financial concerns. So these are clearly the top 3 that are coming: anxiety, psychological wellness, work-life balance, financial concerns. So I'm going to come to you, Bala. Bala, 2 things that I want you to tell us. One is, very quickly, how are you addressing anxiety, work-life balance issues, psychological concerns of people? And after that, I'm also going to pose another question that maybe you have the money to do that, but what about businesses which maybe they have to sack people or they have to let go of people? Have you ever encountered that kind of a situation? What is the humane, or is there any humane way of doing that? But first, how are you addressing your people-related issues?
Yeah, the current, as per our understanding, the biggest challenge that we are facing right now, and we continue to face, is to calm the nerves of the employees and give them reassurance. Whether it is a financial problem or whether it is mostly a health-related issues. That am I, if I get a small, if I start sneezing, is it COVID? You know, what do I do? What do I actually do if I get quarantined? What do I actually do if something is going to happen to me? Some employees used to send a mail to me saying that, sir, what do I do if I die? You know, are you taking care of my families? That kind of. So we have realized that there's a huge amount of psychological, mental agony and distress that the employees are going through. So first thing what we said is that we have always had this emotional, we always believe that emotional health of employees is more important actually than the physical health. And we have a young population. We had this professional agency called Inner Sights. We had the last 4 years we have tied up with them, and any employee has got any problem, they can call up this particular agency, and they will anonymously do whatever counseling required, whether it is in person. I think that particular aspect of this emotional inner sight based emotional counseling, we really pushed it hard, saying that you have a problem, please speak to the professional and they will actually give you a better answer. Number one. Number two, we also have we have actually two medical directors on board with us, and they're very well-known people. They work for big hospitals. We had multiple series of communication to all employees about COVID, what is that they need to worry about, what they should not worry about, what exactly is actually the thesis behind the social distancing and covering your face and sanitizing and washing, why actually washing actually helps. What are the 5 commandments that they need to follow, that don't touch your face, make sure that you always wash your hands, sanitize it, wear a mask, make sure that you have social distancing. You can go near a COVID guy, a COVID impacted person, as long as your face is fully covered and you are actually maintaining the distance, the possibility of your contacting is still actually very low. So we had done a series of these communications, and during this time, communication by the leader makes a huge difference. So we had our executive committee, we had 8 series of web-based communication cascades to all our 7,000 employees. And we did a lot of things, small things to big things, we made sure that the people, especially the frontline guys, they were given all the PPEs. And we actually, yesterday I was reviewing, we bought a mask at 35 rupees in black market, and we got 1.5 lakhs of them in Hyderabad city alone, and we distributed to employees. It doesn't matter. Money is not right now. You're asking your employees to go make sure that they're completely protected. On top of it, we said, listen, we may not be able to give you everywhere. We have 19 cities, 20 cities of presence. We actually given them an ad hoc money, additional money allowance for buying those sanitizers and stuff like that. And most important thing, what we basically said is that we kept on communicating all the time to the employees, saying that these are the do's, these are the do nots. It is not only for you, it is for your family, and it is for anybody who your family comes in contact with. I think that helped a lot. Last but not least, what we have done is that small things, even for people working at home, small things, but they're small gestures, but they're so important. We realized that after 5 days into working from home, many senior people also did not have a proper chair to sit at home. What we said, whoever needs right chairs, because ergonomics are so important. You're not talking about 1 day or 1 week. So we actually taken a poll and sent office chairs. It doesn't matter when you come back to office, you'll sit in a conference room chairs, but we sent office chairs to the people. And we did those small gestures. I think made sure that the employees are comfortable. I think those are the things that actually made lot of reassurance, gave a lot of reassurance. And people started believing in what leadership tells is most important thing for their well-being. I think that's something that we've achieved that.
Bala, I'll just can I just come in for a minute, and I'm going to, before I move on to the next question about what do leaders who do not have the luxury of financial luxury of doing all of this do if they have to reduce manpower, I'm going to ask another question, and this is my question because we have been very lucky to have run a business very well for 13 years. So financially, our balance sheet has been very strong. Our reserves are very strong. We are not going to ask people to leave. And that's what consistently we have been telling people, don't worry about your job security. And one of my managers came to me and said, you are going overboard about not doing this job security bit. And do you know that these are 3 people in our sales team who have not made a single call in the last 5 days and have not been in touch with their customers? I think we need to confront people on performance. And I am not sure, because I don't even know what is, of course, I have spoken to them. On surface, they seem to be fine. But is there something that is, because why would somebody not perform in today's context when they are not sure about results, but they would probably go more out of their way to help the organization? So is this an issue, or for you, this is such a negligible issue or a negligible percentage of people that it's not worth the leaders' time to focus on?
No. We see the most, human beings are the most complex things to manage. So therefore, no issue with respect to human being is small or big. Let me tell you, it is a similar issue that I face everywhere. Many of the audience also will be facing. I'll give you a simple example. Our industry, our business has been declared as an essential service, actually super essential service. To be fair, I used to get calls from, the principal secretary of IT and the minister of IT saying that, listen, $200 billion industry is working from home and there is no infrastructure. Are you guys prepared? And we would like you to make sure that this particular businesses are running, and you must make sure 100% uptime is available. Now, in this scenario, I have a problem with respect to my own philosophy of making sure the customer, employees are the least reached. So what we actually went out and told all our employees, we inspire employees saying that minute in and minute out, we serve 1 crore Indians, 10 million Indians we serve, and that's a great privilege, and it is a service to the nation. And we are leading everyone from the front. Don't worry, even we are there right in front of you, that we are not hiding in the luxurious AC rooms, but we are there with you. But despite that, there are 3 types of employees that have happened, especially the front line, similar to what you're talking about. There are people, they're wonderful, 3,500 of them were always available for us. They were there, sir, give us a work, we will take care of it. And there are some employees continuously work for 21 days because lack of other people. Now, there is a set of about 500 odd employees. These 500 odd employees, actually, the moment this lockdown was announced, they went home and they got stuck there. They were in touch with the HR department. They want to come back, but they were stuck there because of the lockdown restrictions. They were in touch. They're saying that, listen, we can actually do any work from home, anything that you assign to us. The third part of employees, there are 77 of them out of 7,200 of us. They basically switched off. They switched off their mobiles and they became R&R. Now, it is the same thing that you actually went through. So we actually gathered as an executive committee. It's a live example I'm giving you. What do we do? By treating all of them same, you're sending a wrong message to a person who is braving himself and going in on the field. And at the same time, the second set of people, they are like, they're like, their parents may be like us, our children cannot be exposed. Therefore, they said, don't worry about it, job or no job, sit at home. But it is not their fault, they got stuck. You can't actually treat them same as what you're doing with respect to others. Third set of people who actually did not believe in the organizational cause. So we took a very simple philosophy. I think it's again, once your vision, mission is very clear, your philosophy is clear, I don't think that we have any problem with respect to coming to a decision point. We said first, those 3,000 odd people that have worked and braved, they are eligible for an exceptional reward. We will reward them more than what their normal salary increases, normal salaries are. We have not yet announced, but be rest assured that they're going to be significantly rewarded for that. That is a part of our culture. But the second set of 400 odd people, they got stuck. We are not going to punish them. They are not eligible for the reward. But those 77 people who were actually not bothered to come in contact, two things have happened. On 31st March, we will give always our salary increase letters to all our people, and that all appraisals happened on a digital mode. We still gave them their salary increases due. That is an organizational ethos. Their salary letter, increase letter, went in the email, and that's all happened. But however, they were given a show cause notice that please tell us why we cannot take disciplinary action. Out of which few people came back, but I think they have to be treated differently. There has to be an amount of disciplinary action. You may not actually sack them, but certainly they should be differentiated that they are not your go-to people when you are in crisis. I think that should give you the answer, because I'm just giving you examples.
Yeah. No, actually, it gives me the answer to the second question also, because there is no one answer to the second question, that how do you close down a business or how do you lay off people? But what you have told me actually gives me the answer to that question, that you do it the same way. You look at who are the people who are standing with you. And
absolutely.
then,
in fact, if I'm at the crossroad, actually, when you're asking this question, my mind is running through. And if cash is running out, I would approach the same graded philosophy. Number one is protect the customer base, because that is built over multiple years. That cannot be taken away. Come what may, you need to make sure that your business model and customer base is protected. And proactively and transparently share all the issues with all the stakeholders. The important stakeholder is employee, at the same time investor. They understand us. And if it is a temporary or a permanent crisis, we need to evaluate. If it is a temporary crisis, I think we should actually do everything possible to come out of it. Prepare an emergency plan for cash preservation. We have done it. We have done it for the last 3 years. We are facing a big competitor, and we are a small minnow in front of the big competition. We actually did a cash preservation program and postpone all non-essential projects and expenditure. Even projects needs to be postponed because it's a question of survival. Whatever else is required for survival has to be resorted to, and seek affordable and a bit higher cost credit line. There will be mezzanine credit always available. You have a price to pay for a temporary cash credit. I think we should be doing it if it is a temporary phenomena. And of course, freeze and reduce the expenditure. After doing all these things, if you are still at the crossroads, as a last resort, I think reduce salaries. Again, on a graded manner based on hierarchy. Again, the principle here is that affordability. Please make sure that people whose impact is the lowest on people that actually can afford to reduce and give up a bit of their salaries. And if even that will not be, because it is horses for courses. There are many businesses didn't have even a rupee of revenue in the last 45 days. We are seeing that all those SMEs call us and say, listen, can you give us a free internet? We actually do that. We understand their problems. They would like to pay their employees, but they just don't have money. In that scenario, I think if it is inevitable, resort to again humane graded layoffs. Again, the principle is save the majority of them by sacrificing the minimum minority. I think that's exactly, it is better to save than complete destruction. That is exactly what the principle I would take.
No, absolutely.
There is no one size fits all answer for this. It is horses for courses. People have to be contextual, and we're not preaching that, we're not giving any one big panacea for it. I think it has to be taken based on the context.
I understand. And I think we have reached the official end of the time today. It's been a fascinating discussion, and there are many questions which are there. Some of them have been answered. And for the audience who are still with us, is it okay, Bala, Anand, to answer one or two questions before we end this webinar?
I am okay.
Okay. So Preeti, very quickly, any burning questions that we have?
I think the good part is that quite a few questions, got answered as you all were discussing, and one which Bala was just talking about, the last one. Two of our people had asked that. I think one which has come from a few people which I think we've not fully answered, is how do we really prepare people about their concerns on whatever way we go back to offices? There are concerns, whether we go back after 2 months, 1 month, 3 months. So how do you balance that? And how do you kind of take care of that concern that people have? And any advice? And they've asked both of you on the panel. Most people have asked both of you.
Preeti, I'll take the question first. What we have done is we have actually gone with a very clear-cut communication to all our employees already on this, because there was an expectation that the lockdown is going to be open on 3rd of May. We went back and told one thing, very simple thing, that for us, we have the best of the people working. We trust you. And from controlled environment, it is going to be self-controlled environment going forward. And we don't need to be assembled it in one place to actually deliver the results. So we went back and told them that the new normalcy, whatever it is going to be, will not come until we have seen almost negligible cases present and live in any one of our cities. Till such time, we continue to work on offline mode. Having said this, these are the principles that we will follow. Every day, for example, every team leader and above, they will have a report back through a digital platform as to what they have done, all that stuff. But having said this, we are basically telling them that you will work wherever else you can work from home without any implication. And any of those temporary infrastructure that we have created, we will get you a permanent infrastructure. And most importantly, these are the implications of the business. This part of the business is doing well. This part of the business is not doing well. This part of the business is actually lingering on here and there. These are the implications on the totality. Having said this, we will work on cost savings. If there is no business that is impervious, every business got impacted, one way or other. And therefore, what we basically said, these are the areas that we will save costs on. These are the revised ways of working. For example, at a point of time, we used to allow customers to come and pay through check and cash. We said we will not go, we will get into zero touch process. Every customer has to pay through a digital mode, and we will enable multiple digital modes. We have some 20 digital modes enabled. If they mean to do more, we can do that. But having said this, no collection process happens. So therefore, and most of the problems of the customer, we'll continue to solve them through, digital mode over phone stuff. And, so those are the things that we clearly communicated for every department function wise. What are the ways of working going forward? We communicated. I think that clarity is an important thing. We also told them, till we come back to you, these protocols exist. These protocols continue to work so that there is no ambiguity in the mind of an employee.
So there's one question which is coming for Anand. Anand, considering all the Black Swan events that you talked about, if you were to distill your learning in terms of leadership, what will be those 3 or 4 leadership principles which you, with hindsight, you would be able to articulate?
I think, there is one fundamental principle. I don't think there are 2 or 3 in this. I think every equilibrium is the sum total of the opportunities and threats, the possibilities, and the securities and insecurities outside of it. So you are in a place in an equilibrium because you are decided to be in that place with reference to the level of opportunities that you're okay to take and avoid the threats that are existing outside of that place. Which also means that outside of that particular point where you are in space-time, there are other opportunities and other threats, right? And most of the times, because we get, we get absorbed in the urgent versus the important, most of the times equilibriums are very nice places, but equilibriums also sort of make us blind to what could have been. And the best example for me is, the whole thing of, losing the 9 o'clock anchor, and what could we do because of that? Now, we took it. I in fact took it as a challenge. In fact, I said the team that this is November is when that happened. Said next October onwards, I would like to sort of talk to 5,000 management students in this country from October onwards, and talk to them about the success story of Times Now. So we actually, that was a stated objective for 12 months. So what did we do was to find out what are the things that we were not doing because we had such a fantastic resource inside and we were not sort of activating so many other things. So I think every time there is a disequilibrium or a disruption of equilibrium, trust me, there is always opportunities and threats outside of that equilibrium. The other thing is, usually when you look at, and most life coaching, most success coaching is about the mental orientation of you will ultimately see what you look for. So if there are opportunities and threats outside your equilibrium, and you are deciding that you're only going to be looking for opportunities, and tactically manage those threats, but fundamentally, strategically go after the opportunity, then at least I've been lucky till now in the last 4 years. Every event has actually made us, 6 months later or 1 year later, we actually, in fact, between Jagdish, me, Srivatsan, all of us sort of say that, okay, you know what, next year we should be saying what are the things that we are thankful that coronavirus happened, or XYZ thing happened. And that's really sort of helped us. So we look at, like, for instance, I'm honestly telling you this, right now between me and HR, we are looking at how to, accelerate the digital transformation agenda because of coronavirus. I mean, of course, survival is assumed here, that we are in a place that, the basic business model that people will need, advertising, people will need, reliable news is something that we are assuming. And if they need that, then we know that we are the best, so therefore we will be alive. And we are also very good at sort of ensuring that that is anything that we deliver is delivered at the best possible cost combination. So that is an assumption.
Mm-hmm.
After that, what we are looking for is what is it that we could not do that we can do now because of this. And we are, the digital transformation and the entire process changes, the new SOPs that we wanted to anyway put in place even before February, we have been able to sort of really sort of unveil and go forward with all that. The question that you asked before this, Preeti, which came to both of us with reference to how do we sort of assuage people's anxieties. I think one broad message I have given to everybody, that nobody is going to lose their job because of coronavirus. That's a promise that we have given. And and I'm known to sort of just go and make these statements. Sometimes HR and finance find it difficult to then control me. But once you've made that statement, we have made that statement. Right? Like this happened even during the first, when the, as I said, the editor-in-chief moved out. There was a large amount of people who did not know, because a lot of people thought that we are all Arnab's people. Will this company keep us? So we said that we will not have a single person go out because of this.
Sure.
We moved to Delhi. We said we will not sack a single person. So we keep to those promises, and therefore we know that people know that we will not take out anybody. However, that doesn't mean that our forced attrition for our bottom percentiles will not happen. That will happen, and that also people sort of advise me, saying that this is not the time to do that. People will think that you're taking people out because of coronavirus. I'm not going to sort of be nice, or I'm not going to sort of play it according to how it looks from the outside. We will continue to do our business the way we want to. So I think, therefore, the employees have a very clear sense of trust and security that, we're not going to lose out because of this. Second is, not ambiguous. We have very clearly told them that mandated lockdown or not, we are not going to come back to work before July. And if need be, it can even go beyond that. So these two things, and of course, then there are these, I think about a week back, we had a large similar, I wouldn't call it a webinar, but a web conference, which these guys organized. I have addressed, people directly. And it was a 3.5 hour, rambling conversation in which we actually told them what costs have we cut, where are we going, everything in detail. We discussed the P&L for next year. So we're very, very transparent from that point of view. So that I think helps.
I think,
but I think that still doesn't take away the one stress. Two stresses I think people have. One is, the not being able to dress up and go to work is something that hits people. Second is not being able to take leave because you're already at home. So the concept of being at home and taking leave is becoming, I think, an issue, because we are finding 100% attendance, and therefore actually productivity is going up, because where there is content contribution, where they used to have, like, for instance, digital 350 to 400 stories is becoming like 550 to 600 stories per day. Now that is, while it is good, I think it also will come at a cost of people getting stressed out. That's something that we need to worry.
Absolutely. I think I wish we could have gone on and on, but we're absolutely out of time, as they say in your channels, Anand. And this has been fascinating. I think what I have learned, and a few things, is that run a business really, really well, so that you don't have to get rid of people when something like this strikes you. You have your principles right, and then your decision making becomes very clear. It's all about priorities, who comes before whom, and that would be determined by the principles. The leadership role modeling is what is very, very important. I'm going to leave you with two things which I think is very interesting, because what Bala talked about is a philosophy called utilitarianism. So those of us who have not read Jeremy Bentham, we should go back and read, where it says that if you can do good to majority of the people by doing something which impacts a minority of the people, that is what you should be doing, which means that if top management pay cuts, like Lemon Tree Patu Keswani told us last time, 65% pay cut, and that took care of, say, 50% of the wage bill. So they didn't have to touch anybody else. And that is one. And the last one is, let's make a pledge that next year, or maybe end of this year or beginning of next year, 5,000 management students will hear our story of business transformation that happened in context of COVID-19 and beyond. Thank you so much, Bala, Anand, and all of the attendees. A very large number of them have stayed back even now. So, Preeti,
Thank you so much.
over to you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Prasenjit.
much.
Thank you, Preeti. Thank you, Bala.
Thank you to both of you. There has been like a flurry of comments saying hats off, thank you, very well said. So I'm going to send some of this to you, and to all the attendees. We'll be sharing the recording. Thank you so much. Thanks for making out the time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Bye-bye. Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Stay
Bye.
safe.
You too.